This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is the president and CEO of Almaden Minerals, Mr. Morgan Poliquin. Morgan, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Hope you're well too.
I'm well. Thank you for asking. It's great to have you back on. What motivated this conversation was the most recent bit of news that Almaden is conducting IP geophysical work at Ixtaca. And I thought it was a really good opportunity to highlight the quality of the project because I get the sense that there's a lot of people that, despite you being around for over a decade, right? The initial discovery, I believe, was made in 2010. There's still a lot of people not familiar with the deposit. This is a deposit that is anchored by a 4.5 million gold equivalent resource. That's across all categories. You have a mint condition mill with a replacement cost of approximately $70 million. And here you sit with a market cap, right around the $93 million level. That's Canadian. So I would love for you to give us a brief overview of the project, the polymetallic nature, which makes it unique. And then we'll get into some of the economics, which I think are pretty compelling.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. You're right. This is discovered 10 years ago. We call it a new discovery because it's a brand new area of Mexico to find this kind of resource, and this isn't around historic working. And most of those 10 years has been, pretty challenging environment for gold and silver. So our focus over those 10 years has been on the resource and developing it into a reserve, which we did through a feasibility study. And we've got, there's some special things about this resource. We've got a 2.5 million ounce gold equivalent reserve, and that's comprised of just gold and silver. And so this is a truly precious metals resource in that sense, just gold and silver. And interestingly, the special thing about this deposit, I think, is that it's 50% gold, 50% silver, roughly by value, dollars per ton. So it's really you can look at it either way, from a gold equivalent perspective or from a silver equivalent perspective. So we've got 2.5 million ounce gold equivalent in the reserve, which is comprised of 85 million ounces of silver and 1.39, about 1.4 million ounces of gold. That's 189 million ounces of silver equivalent. And in the first 6 years of production, the key period of time in any mine, we produce 200,000 ounces a year gold equivalent, but that's 15 million ounces in silver equivalent terms. So those silver metrics make it really special. And like I say, just to reiterate, it's 50% gold, 50% silver value per ton.
And again, I mentioned the 4.5 million gold equivalent ounces. It's important to note that that's the resource base across all categories, which I think speaks to the exploration upside, which we'll touch on in just a bit. But the 2.5 million gold equivalent reserves, for those not familiar, can you make the distinction there for the audience there, Morgan?
Well, that's right. You have to do a really the highest kind of level of study is a feasibility study, and you have initial studies that are called now PEAs or scoping studies, and pre-feasibility studies, and then feasibility studies. And we've done all three categories of study, and our feasibility study at the end of 2018 is that level of study is what defines the kind of category of reserve, and so that's a lot of work, and I'd like to. It's a great opportunity, and thank you for the opportunity to describe that, because that 10 years we haven't wasted that time. We used it to do the detailed engineering work, social, environmental work that all go into that level of study, a feasibility study.
The metallurgy is excellent. The infrastructure is excellent. You have a community that is supportive of the project. We all know that there was a permitting decision that effectively denied the initial application, but we also all know that in Mexico, it's not uncommon for that to happen once or twice before subsequent approvals. It's part of the negotiation process that goes on in Mexico. I want to highlight some of the numbers in that feasibility study, because I think, I spoke to that $93 million market cap Canadian that you have right now. And if we use 1275 gold and 17 ounce silver, which was a long time ago, obviously, we're talking about a net present value of just over $400 million Canadian, right? So over 4 times today's market cap. That's at 12.75 gold and 17-ounce silver. If we go up a little bit and we go to 14.25 gold and $20 silver, that net present value rockets to over 600 million Canadian. If I use today's prices, and I believe gold and silver are both headed higher, then we're talking about a market cap, a net present value of over $1 billion Canadian, and a market cap a tenth of that, right? And so I think for people that are listening or reading this, that's the value proposition here, right? The discount that's being applied to the shares as a result of the initial permit application being denied. Walk me through the recent additions to the board, Morgan, because this is a big emphasis and focus for the company moving forward, is really getting more familiar with all of the departments that need to be involved to get this project permitted the way we all believe it should be, right?
Well, that's exactly right. And let's be clear: we found this deposit in our group. We're an exploration-oriented group, and obviously, as we've described, we've taken this through the various stages of geology and engineering studies to get to a feasibility stage where we can, at which point we submitted our permits and on the design basis of that feasibility study and going into production requires a whole different skill set. And I think recently the permit denial, which got us to really focus on bolstering the team. And obviously that was a decision that was a real challenge, but it was also, however, we wished it to be positive, but it would have been an inflection point for our company if it was positive, because we would be changing into moving towards production. So I think this has been a great opportunity for us in some ways to really look at our team. And Alfredo Phillips, who has joined the board, I want to highlight him initially. Kevin O'Kane is got a very rich background in ESG in particular, and mine management and all aspects of building mines in Chile and Latin America, but and a key addition in that respect in terms of ESG governance and all issues pertaining to that side of the business. Alfredo Phillips is working with a major company in Mexico that's making major investments in the country, but has an extremely rich background with particularly Torex, a very, very successful gold mining company in Mexico that has navigated the challenging waters of permitting successfully. And I think that Alfredo's background dealing with the challenges that inevitably come up when you're building a mine, and in particular in not very far away, a different state, but not very far away in Mexico, is a powerful addition to our board. And already we feel that our communication and our efforts in terms of opening new doors and whatnot, he's very helpful in that regard, obviously, having been through that experience. So it's an exciting time, I think, to be rejuvenating our group and our team for the next effort ahead.
It also helps that Mr. Phillips is currently the head of government affairs in Mexico for the world's largest steel producer, right? Let's talk exploration upside, because despite the very robust resource and reserve base, there is a lot of exploration upside on the property. You mentioned your knitting, your specialty, Morgan, is pioneer in exploration for precious metals in this part of Mexico and making discoveries. Can you speak a bit to the exploration upside and how you plan on unlocking some of that value here as you work through the permitting next phase of the permitting application?
Well, and let me digress a little bit. Being a geologist, I have to speak to the particular environment here so people understand why this was a new discovery 10 years ago and why it wasn't found before. And that's because this kind of gold silver deposit is basically a hot springs, and it's the best way to think of it, I believe, is as a mushroom. And basically the top of the mushroom, the cap there, is this clay alteration, which very often doesn't have very much gold and silver in it at all. And you're looking for the stem, and there can be a few stems. Imagine a bunch of mushrooms together. We don't want to extend the metaphor too far, but we're looking for these stems underneath. And we found one with the Ixtaca deposit itself, and the alteration, the area, that sort of cap on top, extends for significant distance away from the deposit, the known area mineralization, and we think that there could be other stems, and the indications on surface with our work at the end of last year showed that indeed there was real hot spots in this alteration. We're doing, as you pointed out at the beginning of our interview, we're doing some additional geophysics to try to highlight where under this barren zone of clay alteration where we should be drilling to see if this will help us define it a bit better. But that's the basic concept, and tying into the work program that's gone on, it has been a challenging, until recently, precious metals have been challenged in terms of their price environment. There's a reason why in 2018, you talked about the price deck for the feasibility study. The base case was $12.75 and 17 silver. So that's pretty indicative of where we've been the last 10 years. And so we've had to focus in that kind of environment on developing the resource that we had identified through the exploration drilling and de-risking it and moving it through those stages, which we talked about, to a feasibility level. And, that has meant that we, have left, I think, a lot of the exploration potential for exploration that we plan to work on now. So that's really exciting for me because, while it's been quite exciting doing these detailed studies and so on, and seeing the project emerge from that and be defined. At the same time, I'm an explorationist, and I'm always thinking about what's over the next hill. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity to be, on the one hand, to be developing and moving forward a deposit, on the other hand, hoping to find something new, all on the same project.
Morgan, that was a very thorough update and overview. Anything else that you'd like to add before I let you go? And thank you again for your time. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And there is something I think is really important for people to understand, that our community social engagement, our community relations and transparency program is something I'm really, really proud of. And our efforts to incorporate the community, their opinions, their attitudes, we did towards the project, and try to improve on that feedback is something that we're all proud of in our group. And one of the things that's emerged here, we're lucky geologically, meaning that our host rock is limestone, which is a pretty benign buffering rock that we think there even is the possibility to sell we call it waste rock in mining, but the rock that it doesn't have the gold and silver in it. We think there's even the possibility of contributing to a circular economy by selling that material, or it could be utilizable, put it that way. And but the two key aspects of this project that make it very, very special. This is an area where we can enhance local access to fresh potable water through the construction of a freshwater reservoir that is actually part of the mine plan. And that meets one of the major concerns in human rights in the world today is access to fresh drinking water. And so that's part of the mine plan itself, which is, I think, really unique. We've already contributed to helping people with reservoirs that are separate from the one in the mine plan. The one in the mine plan is a big one. And the second aspect of this project is that we, through the process of the various levels of studies in the pre-feasibility study, we had a tailings dam. And we've reduced the footprint of the mine plan by building a dry stack filtered tailings facility, which is more expensive, but it reduces the impact area on the one hand, and also the water impact by obviously filtering and removing water from our tailings and removing a tailings dam entirely from the picture, which means there's no risk of a tailings dam failure as a consequence. So those and other aspects of the project make it really, really special, and that's part of obviously our efforts to communicate this to all the stakeholders.
The quality of the work that you and the team has done is apparent, Morgan, and I am excited about the new board additions and the renewed focus in really getting the message out about the quality of the work, the deposit, and the support that the community has, and the need, frankly, that the community has for this project to move forward. I think it's a heck of an opportunity. And again, thank you for your time, Morgan. Good catching up.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Gerardo.
Stay safe out there.
Yeah, you guys too.